one of my sons, who's very dear and very wonderful with me about all of this, and he's can't say he's open about it. He just trusts me, and we have a very loving relationship. But he said, he was starting out as a lawyer. He said, "Dad," he says, I just hope that I get my career established before they find out I'm your son." He said, I mean, he knew what the worldview out there was, And one of my friends is a very well-known playwright who writes about spiritual matters in his plays. Really, very well known. He's written some Broadway plays and that are, you would know if I gave you the name of the plays. And he was raised as a child as a pretty devout Roman Catholic. And he was educated in the extreme rationalism of the 20s and 30s and totally put his Catholicism behind and him and rejected it by and large and became he actually was a card-carrying person in several ways, but he was certainly a card-carrying materialist in his thinking, not in terms of scientific materialism. But he noticed in his 60s that he was beginning to drift back into the church. Not becoming a member, but he'd kind of go to Mass, He'd get in there and I didn't ask him if he took communion, but he went into the church and he would feel something. He'd feel like he was in the presence of something that was much greater than the world that he had left outside. Some kind of it wasn't so much what the priests were saying, but just it was a place to contemplate, a place to open his heart to the divine, and he would feel something that was way beyond what he knew outside. As soon as he walked outside, into the sunlight or this world, he would sort of put that aside. He'd say, "Well, that's what I did in there, but that's not what really counts. This is the real world." So I asked him, I said, "Bill," I said, "why do you make that choice? Why do you determine that world is not the one that is the true world and this is the real world?" And he said, "This scientific worldview has had a lot more success in establishing itself in its version of reality than the one inside the church has had." Now think about that. I don't even know what to say about that, but it makes sense. I mean, it has, in a way. It has dominated. And if we're going to open to other worldviews, we have to become as rigorous and sophisticated and deep thinking about that as what has gone into creating this other materialist religion. We need to develop an understanding of what gets called subtle energy phenomena. I don't think energy is the right word here, but because it's borrows, in a sense, it's borrowed from physical language. But, it's like when people are in a room together and somebody says, "Oh, there's wonderful energy in the room here," Well, it feels like, okay, energy, but it's not really energy. I mean, it's not like you could put a Geiger counter in the middle of the room and the register would go up. It's something more subtle, more intangible that you feel. It's not subtle in its impact, but it's subtle in terms of whatever it is. We don't know what it is. It's something unknown in a way. So I think maybe a better way of thinking about it would be think of a subtle realm, which would be, like we're talking about the etheric realm or the astral world. That's the subtle realm, and that something that emerges from that realm and manifests in this realm is hard to study. It's not just physical. It's got some subtlety to it. We talk about body energy, the body energy field, but there's some qualities that the body energy field. Barbara Brennan has, who's worked with subtle energies and has a school to study healing and the use of subtle energies, and she says that subtle energies are different from electromagnetic energy because electromagnetic energy tends to be finite. you can use it up in any given situation. But the more you enter the field of subtle energy, the more you employ it, the richer it gets. It grows. It's different than physical energy as we know it. Paranormal phenomena, parapsychology. People have talked. Angela worked in the Princeton lab where they have random number generation, and they show that people's emotional states, or what's going on, if they're all excited about a football game, that the group energy, quote unquote, will affect how the numbers are generated. Nobody knows how that works. It's not like something's passing into the computer, the random number jet. Something subtle is occurring there, and that kind of connection I think we need to understand more about. The power of thought, for example, or prayer to bring healing, that's very well established now by all kinds of controlled studies, but we don't know how it works. It's not as if you're praying for somebody on the other side of the country and it affects them and they get better, but it's not as if something measurable. It could be like you put a block between you and that person, it wouldn't work. It's not like that. So that's what I mean by the subtle domain. I expand our epistemology, placing more emphasis upon intuitive, holistic, and traditional ways of knowing. I don't like to defend myself because I think sometimes you lend energy to a criticism or an attack if you don't feel it's truthful. But I have been criticized a lot or attacked. It's been on the internet that I somehow am opposed to Western science, or I reject Western science. And this is absolutely not true. I mean, I think Western science has accomplished a great deal in knowing about the physical world and healthcare and weapons development and all kinds of things. And but it's limited. Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut, when he was coming back from space, and he had this spiritual epiphany as he saw the magnificence of the universe around him, and he said, our science, as he had learned, is limited. It's incomplete. There's much more to what exists, to what we are, that we need to know about. And he founded the Institute of Noetic Sciences in California to explore and enable that increased richness of our ways of knowing to occur. There are a number of writers now who are working or being very critical of these limitations of Western science. And a lot of it has to do with its environmental consequence. In other words, if the universe, the world as we know it, is limited to the physical world, then that gives permission, in a sense, to rape the earth or do the things that we have been doing over the last several decades through misapplying the technologies of science. So that expanded knowledge that we need is something that does involve a use of knowledge through the heart, the use of intuition, the opening up to the holistic knowing that traditional peoples have understood from thousands of years, which we need to return to, not rejecting Western science, but deepening our understanding of reality and the ways of knowing. The person that I think is the most brilliant and powerful writer on this subject is a professor of philosophy and religion at George Washington University by the name of Syed Hossein Nasr, N-A-S-R. And I think it's kind of ironic that he's a Muslim, and he's tremendously knowledgeable, great scholar. And just read you a couple of things that he wrote along these lines, because he can say it better than I know how to say it. He says, for instance, not only is the invisible, an infinite ocean compared to which the visible is like a speck of dust, but it permeates the visible itself. In other words, often the argument is that there is this reality, the physical